Good morning. I have been asked to give you an update on the campus projects. And so I tried to figure out how do I explain this to you so that it makes sense? Because in my mind, I visualize, the person with the plates. Remember the thing where you'd spin the plates, you run over and spin the plates, and then one would fall off and then go spin the plates. But that really doesn't tell it because it's not one person, it's a lot of people. We have architects and engineers, we have our maintenance staff. Rob and Franz, thankfully, do a great job of coordinating all these projects, but there's so many moving parts. We got contractors in every building. Sometimes we have multiple contractors and they're subcontractors. And so this is the image I came up with. Uh-oh. It worked earlier, I promise. Thank you. So lots of moving parts here, and we'll take you through each project a little bit so you get an understanding. If you look at the lady on the far right on the bottom, she's questioning her. It's hard to see in this, but you can see she's questioning her life choices because she's thinking, my parents asked me to be a teacher and I wanted to travel, and how did I get myself into this? And some days it feels like that. What am I doing wrong? Okay, so we'll start at the archive selection fire suppression system. It is a Sapphire system. When for several years, in archives, they wanted to do a fire suppression system, but we didn't want to put water. So you got valuable books, a fire starts, and now you soak all of the valuable books. These are not replaceable things. And so we went to a Sapphire system. Most of the time, that's for electronic equipment like computers, servers, things like that, that you don't want to get wet, but you do want to put the fire out. Connie always said we'd rather have wet books than burned books, but this is the best of that. And so Sapphire is actually an agent. It's like in a liquid form in this pressurized tanks. And then when the system goes off, it sprays out into a gas, cools the fire, Franz tells me, and helps extinguish that or suppress it until someone can come put it out. These are the tanks. There's not a whole lot to see here, but those tanks are installed now. There's one of the control panels, and then that's the system itself. So piping across the system, you can see the head is up in the air, whereas with wet systems, a lot of times you see them lower than that. But anyway, the gas comes out, it falls down, and puts out the fire. Also, while we were in there, our maintenance guys replaced the lighting there. They had sharp edges on the shrouds, and as they would climb up into those racks to put stuff up on the upper files, you can see there they would cut their heads. And so we eliminated that. It's LED lighting. It's very bright. So we knocked all of that out. The system is in. The staff training has occurred. On these systems, the problem is once it starts to alarm, once it says it's going to go off, you have a few seconds to say, it's a false alarm, please don't go off, because once the system goes off, it's very expensive to fill the tanks back up. And so, and also it's it's not going to kill people, but it's a hazard to the people working in the area. We don't want you breathing stuff that you don't need to breathe. So um, we we are just waiting on the panic bars, the position switches, those things that tell you that the door's propped open, because you don't want to. It has to pressurize. How many minutes did you say?
Be closed for at least 10 minutes.
So the doors have to be closed for 10 minutes for this system to activate. It's meant to be foolproof, that it only goes off when you want it to go off. You have the ability to stop it, but everybody needs to know and not just panic and run out of the building and let the thing go off without a fire. Public Safety Center infill, so our IS infill. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, but this is just to get your orientation. If you look to the right of it, it's the front doors. And then as you go back down the back hallway on the west side is where the IS area is. Basically the area that's white and not grayed out. So zooming in, you can see right by the policy conference room. On the very west side are offices. And then on the interior part is the information, the help desk, and then some offices, and then the adjunct space. So the adjunct was where the offices were. We moved them interior. We wanted to put our daylight, our windows where our permanent employees are, not where our temporary staff that's a continual revolving door. And so that's what the offices look like now. That I don't remember what the tape's for, but the tape's coming down. So they painted it with the colors of the building. We put new Kinetics carpet down. We did some LVT in other places, but most of it's carpeted. And this is the adjunct space, so similar, just moving those spaces. This will have furniture in it very soon. And then down in the basement, you can see at the top of the screen, that's where the network, right? Desktop operations, I knew it wasn't right. And then programming over there on the right side. We did flip the JIC, and we moved, that's where network is, right? So, and then the other white part over on the left-hand side, it was already existing space. We added a door there to take them into the server room. And so that's what desktop operations looks like. It's a long room. It'll have a lot of furniture in it, and then an office at the end on the south end. This is programming, and this is an up-to-the-minute presentation because just yesterday they started assembling the furniture. It'll be systems furniture there. The only way we could get this more up to date is if we had a live feed watching them right now. This was yesterday near the end of the day. So furniture installation, as I said, started yesterday. The existing furniture move is scheduled for the week of March 18th. That will let them go ahead and move into that facility. We really need their space. We thought we were going to immediately start renovation and move the commission in, but with all the other work going on, it's going to be a really nice staging area. And so we're not kicking them out for that reason. It just made sense that they would, of all the places that go here, that's where their servers are. It's a hardened space. It was used. Nobody comes to the historic court that I'm aware of. Nobody comes to historic courthouse to visit IS. They go wherever they are. Unlike the other offices that work together as the customers come in. When they get a building permit, I'm aware of that process. When they get a building permit, they also may need to post a bond with the treasurer's office. They may need to get something from the recorder or the assessor's office. And so we all work together. There was a full building and there wasn't really a place somebody had to move. And so IS drew the short straw, and to make it a sweeter, we're going to try to give them some nice space. And we have visitation. Hopefully we'll go see them. Hopefully they'll come see us. While we're in that building, we'll talk about the third chiller. So I saw this arrive, and it's really hard to describe how big a chiller is. This is a 90-ton York unit, but it's massive when you look at the size of this trailer and the size of the crane it took to set it. Show you a few pictures. Again, this was yesterday, so up to date here. This is them swinging it into place in the Public Safety Center over on the south end of the building. And this is them guiding it into place and setting it in place. So there it sits on the far end with its two sisters. And so the one closest to us was replaced at the end of last year. Chillers, the tubes were going bad on that. And so it seems like a brand new building, but it's been there a while. And so this equipment does wear out. The tubes were going bad. And so Franz wisely replaced one. The building was built for 3, but it only had 2 operating in it. And so he pulled the tubes out of the one, and the middle one will eventually be rebuilt with those new tubes. So we'll make one good one out of those 2 old ones. These will operate in rotation, so they always get used. They're not just sitting there waiting to be used. They'll be used every day, which is much better for mechanical equipment. 90-ton chiller was set yesterday. Chill water lines, the electric, all of that stuff is going to be completed over the next couple weeks. And then that middle chiller will be rebuilt at some point in the future when Franz gets a slow day or nothing's going on, somewhere in there. Admin building stair replacement. You've been kind of watching the show over here, especially the office holders, as we've diverted you from being able to walk to and from your parking lot. They started off strong. They put boards up. We thought they were going to go, and then they decided the method that they had chosen to demolish this wasn't going to be good, and so they came back Monday. We thought they were going to be finished yesterday. They are not finished, as you know, and we will open that back up as soon as it is safe to be there. It wasn't really safe before, but there was a false sense of security. And so once we restore that false sense of security, we will let you all. This is the front stairs, and you can see they're just falling apart. This was originally built with snow melt into the system. It was Firestone, I think, was the rubber hoses, and for whatever reason, they had problems with that, and it just deteriorated over time. And so once we didn't have snow melt in it, we salted them, and you can see the toll that it's taken on those stairs. The rear ones are the most dangerous, and so we've quit using those rear stairs, but we wanted to replace them. It is a historic building. It's built in the WPA days, and so we want to keep its character, but at the same time, we don't want to spend a fortune on just an emergency fire escape. So these will be metal stairs. This is the demolition crew working, and this is what it looks like after. Well, this is the part that will eventually come off. Once they pull that off, they will field measure it, so they make sure that the stairs fit back. You know, the rise and all the tread size has to be the same. And so they will actually fabricate that after they do the demolition and the field measurements. And still, I'm not sure on the schedule of the front stairs. That will happen this summer sometime, but we still need the submittals and all those things. So I'm purposely looking at Rob and Franz to say and they will correct anything I say wrong. If they're doing this, I will probably change my story.
So we literally got the rebar submittal yesterday.
Okay. Rebar submittal yesterday, so progress on that front too. Judicial makeup air and cooling towers. They actually set these on the 12th. These are cooling towers. That's the front and back side of the two cooling towers. This was just a replacement of what we had already in place, so updating those. Franz said the media from the old cooling towers was getting into the system and clogging it. Without going into a lot of detail, you have VAVs in the ceiling in judicial, and so you're sending hot water and cold waters. You got boilers and chillers, and so you got hot and cold water. And when you turn the thermostat in judicial, it actually gives you whichever you need to raise or lower the temperature in the room. It's a plenum system, so there's no ducted return. It just goes up in the ceiling and it pulls itself back through the air handlers in the middle space. And so when VAVs get clogged, then it doesn't matter what you do. It may be giving you all cold air. And so on a 90-degree day outside, it may be 60 degrees in your office or vice versa. Be the coldest day and you're burning up. And that's frustrating to the occupants of the building. So over time, we replaced pumps, we replaced boilers, we replaced all the parts. This is just, chillers. This is just adding to that. So cooling towers were the one of the last things. And then this is the makeup air. And so when you tighten up a system, you really need some fresh air added into it. And this will give us the ability to temper that air. And so on cold days, we'll be able to heat it up a little bit and bring in the fresh air in so that you don't make it rain in your office where you've got one temperature and then the fresh air is coming in at a different temperature. I'm told this is a DOAS unit, which stands for
Dedicated outside air.
Dedicated Outside Air System.
So it pulls 100% outside area.
Everybody hear that? 100% outside air. So that is adding to our system. This system has not been functioning in judicial for a while, a decade, so give or take. So anyway, this will make a big difference in the building. There's also things that you do to balance the building. I remember when I first got here that when you go in the judicial building, you go to the restroom and you come out and the door would not close. It would come close. It would close to about 6 inches and then it would hold itself open. And that's just a building out of balance. It's pressurized and everything doesn't work right. So the units were set on February 12th. The chill water pumps were also replaced at that time, and the air separator is set to be replaced this weekend in our up-to-date report. And then very soon, this whole system will be operational again. Historic courthouse makeup, air, and HVAC. This is probably why most of you are here, because you've heard the rumblings on the third floor, and you're thinking, heaven help us if those guys come down and work on our floors. And I will just tell you what you're in for a little bit. So I don't want to tell you the whole story. I don't want to scare everybody, but this is what you're in for. This is our maintenance guys. They are actually putting in LG equipment, so the part that will heat and cool the interior offices or the exterior offices in this case are being done by our crew. This is a big cost savings. We were given, thankfully by the commission, we were given a lot of ARPA funding to do this project. But when in heating and cooling, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It's always more. It's a very expensive process. And so to save money, some of our maintenance people went to school and got certified in installing LG equipment. I'll show you here in a second. We have a whole warehouse full of LG equipment just waiting to be installed. This is I love this lift. That's the first time I'd seen it work. It's a little pole thing, and it just elevates it telescopic. It just elevates the equipment right in place. You don't have to have two men on a ladder trying to hold it in place. They lift it right up, and then they pipe it in. They anchor it. It's hard to see in that, but if you can see up at the top, you see the little anchor bolts, the all thread. What do you call it? All thread. Got it right. And so they put that on there and screw it up into place so it matches the ceiling. And then also we have a contractor working to do the makeup air. And so the makeup air is going to be giant units on the roof. It's going to be ducted into the building. And so there are cavities between the stairs on the back side of the stairs that they'll actually use to bring ducts down to the different places. Makeup air will have to be, you have to have return air and forcing air into the building. And so they're cutting these giant holes to allow for this ductwork. And so you can see in this picture, it's not a real pretty cut, but the reason is when they're cutting this in place for these larger ducts, they're actually dry cutting these. The normal way would be on new construction. You would get in there to make a slurry. It would be wetting this bit, and it would just make a muddy mess. Well, we don't want a muddy mess in our building or a fully occupied building. We're not shutting down. And so they're cutting this with essentially a chainsaw. They're dry cutting this, bricks and concrete and all, and they are protecting the building as best they can. There is a red dust, especially from the brick, but they're doing a pretty good job of cutting these, and they've been using our holiday weekends, but now we're going to work with them to try to do regular weekends, and then they just do a little bit at a time, and then they come back and they clean it up. Along with that, they are cutting these cores. So coring and cutting is drilling for the smaller ones. It's actually a drill core, more what you're used to, a giant drill bit that cuts the concrete. And so they are coring. We didn't want them to cut the ductwork in and then come back and cut, core stuff. So we wanted just all at one time. They're working with them to do all of that while they're here. The thing I also want to impress on you is they're trying to keep the system working while they're installing a new system. And so you have ductwork for the new system, you have ductwork for the old system. And so you have a lot of these things. The thing with the plastic on it, it will have a cover eventually, but that is the new unit. That's what's going to heat and cool your space. And then you've got the existing one that looks like more like the open grate. And then you have the new one that's the makeup air, right? So you have multiple things in your office all at one time. And then eventually, once the system is operational, we will pull out the old system, at least on the surface there. Probably have some hidden ductwork, but and so again, you'll have a little duplication of services here, but that's just to keep you operational until we got the new system in. There's the LG equipment. That's one side of, right, and that is the other side. Lots of stuff, lots of stuff to be installed. Again, we're currently working on the third floor. The rooftop units we expect to get here at the end of April or early May, and then we will, the big earnest work of connecting all of this up will happen. This will be most intrusive to the third floor because the rooftop units are going to go in 300 down in environmental and GIS, and then where our permit techs are, the raised roofs, if you will, on top of the building. And so that's where they're going to cut the holes in the roof and bring the ductwork down. As they get to your floors, it will be less and less disturbing, but it still will be disturbing. I don't want to make light of it. It will be, and we'll continue to work with you. We wanted them to start on the third floor anyway because it's where we can see what they're doing and how bad it is. The health department is doing a similar project, and they just basically moved out of the building. So we're tougher than they are.
It'd be a lot easier.
We're a lot tougher than they are, so we're just going to do this with work. IS is out of here, right? Windows, another thing that's very exciting. So if you look at the picture on the right, it is the windows that were installed in the 70s. And you can see it's basically just a squared off flash metal type of construction. But when you go search for it, this is at the door coming in just right outside the collector's office. You see that there's a little trim. It was a little more decorative in the day when they first installed these. And so what we're hoping to do is go back with something very similar. It won't exactly match, but it'll give it more character. It'll look like it's historic instead of built in the 70s on the cheap. With the amount of windows we're doing and the contract, this doesn't cost any more money. It's just the difference what you order. And also, while we're there, we're going to replace, there are some windows in the historic courthouse that have Phoenix stone as the windowsill, and so all the sills are going to go back with stone. They will pull a window out, they'll put a window back, and so they won't leave you there with no windows. But that will take a while to trim out the interior, put the windowsill, and then at the end of it, we're also going to do the window shades. So thankfully, we bid those as bid alternates, and then what's that? Exciting. So this is what's in the operations center, and you can see from the outside. So this is Roetta's office. You can see one raised and one lowered. You still get the natural light. These are called 3% open, and so they're not. You're familiar with blackout curtains. The problem is people don't like blackouts. Most of the time you don't want to completely black it out. And so these shades, when they're down, people can't see in. You can see out though, and you can still get the advantage of the natural light without the glare. So we're excited about that. The window sills and the shades were bid alternates, and the commission, when we gave them all the choices, decided to accept all of them. So thank you, commission, for that. I think it'll make a much nicer product. I think from the outside, it'll look like our building is all one instead of individual. You can still set stuff in your windows. We're not doing that, but it won't be the ragtag. And it won't be, when I got here or a little before, we all had window units, air conditioners. They look awful. This will look much nicer. So just to give you a little idea, the Teft building, we replaced the windows last year. Last year, Ron? And so it's amazing to me what a difference it looks like. You see on one side the old windows and the other side the new windows. This building was also tuck pointed and pressure washed, so that makes a little difference. But just look at the windows themselves, just really make that building look nice. And if you go look at our building now and you imagine new windows, it will be an amazing difference from the outside. That's not really the reason we're doing it for appearance. And I know all of you are the same way, but if there's a north wind, I have to put on a jacket because it's just blowing down my neck. And we finally solved most of the water issues, but the air issues, just energy efficiency will save a lot of money. So windows are ordered. We expect to get them in May. I also just wanted to mention this to you. I don't have any architects. We didn't hire an architect, but resource management, we asked for a different front counter. Just the part of the COVID and having people come in. Our permanent techs were having everybody come in and sit at their desks. We needed a front counter, and so Bree helped us with this. We want to, if you look at the cyan color in the middle, you can see that that's going to be 4 units. 3 of them will be tall walk-up counters. We'll sit on taller chairs to see them eye to eye. And then the last one on the top of the thing will be more of a accessible desktop height. So in case we have anyone that needs to sit down or is handicapped. We also at the same time are going to make, it's really hard to see on here, but we also are making a path around the backside for the staff. There's an old doorway that was closed up. We're going to open that back up. And so we have a staff hallway around the back behind the counter. And then it's very clear to the public that this is their space. It will be big enough for them all to be there and inviting, hopefully, but it will be, this is your side, this is our side. So it's much needed. We just threw in $50,000 for that, and it's basically carpet. Carpet was 30 of it. So basically painting, and then our own crews are installing this. So I don't know if you can get this. I drew it, so we didn't have a real architect, and I'm going to show you a rendering of a good one here in a second. But this is the 3 units, the walk-up height, and then this is a side view down at the bottom where you can see it'll have a little ledge that'll be Phoenix stone, and then the rest of it will be it's a plywood but a laminate top. And so we plan to move the permit techs out when the rooftop units are here. So if they come in May and we set those, it's going to be nearly impossible for them to conduct business with the public while they're working over their heads and cutting holes in the roof. So we're going to move them out, we're going to remodel, and then we're going to move them back when that's done. Well, our hope is to move them into the IS space, which brings me to the next project, the collector's walk-up window. And I don't want to speak for Alan and Kevin, but I do want to show you when you hire an architect, you get some frills here. This is actually what their window might look like. And I do not have the ability or the software to do the rendering, or we would do something like this. But their goal will be in their part where you do where you pay, that you would actually have these walk-up windows. So that was the public side. This is the staff side. And if they decide to pull this project off, then we would do this and have them back in their space before tax collection time. And so our hope would be, again, think spinning plates. We'll move the permit techs in May. We'll get them out in time for the collector to move into that space temporarily, and then we'll have them back in their space. I don't know if it's possible, but like the lady on the bottom, we're going to make it happen. Restrooms, I don't have a lot to tell you about that, but up on the second and third floor, the women's restroom on the second floor will move back to be stacked back with the men's restroom. And then we don't have a women's restroom on the third floor, and so we would add one. It would take out a maintenance area and a storage area that we have full of files. But we don't have a schedule for that construction. But when that happens, sometime before we remodel the commission's area on the second floor, we construct that women's restroom on the second floor so that we don't have a time where we don't have a restroom. Treatment court, this is an exciting project. This is the vacated sheriff's office space, and so this is just a rendering of what that might look like. Treatment court plans are finished, and this is going to bid the end of this month. And really what this does, gives us an advantage of having more courtrooms than judges, getting treatment court off the third floor where they're all out in the hall most of the time. This courtroom will be big enough so that everybody can be in it. It will help congestion in the courthouse. It buys us a little time for the big plan that we do that we're planning to remodel the old jail. So bid opening March 27th. We really hope to complete construction by the end of the year. I didn't put floor plans in here because it's really hard to see, and I don't want that out in the whole world because there are holding cells and back of inmate transfer parts that are a public safety thing. So if you want a tour of this, I'm sure we'll open it up at the time we get this completed. And then judicial annex is the last thing, and we're running out of time. 2 minutes. So this is we call this the big project. I don't have a real good name for this. So this is the big project. When the commission asked us, can you do all of this? We had some bond funding, we have some ARPA funding, we had all that. Can you do it all? And we said, I don't know. We instill confidence in them by saying, a lot of stuff. But we're narrowing this down, and this is the screening area that you see out front. It's glass, except where the sign is. That would be Phoenix stone. But it would be where natural light comes into the space, but it doesn't. It's still obscured, especially where campus security is screening people. You don't want to open your buildings up. We architects like these nice, beautiful buildings, but they forget the practicalities of somebody driving by and shooting into the courthouse. And so we're making it secure, but also making it natural light. It won't look exactly like this, but this is the architect's rendering at this point. Design is ongoing on this. The nice thing will be you'll have one point of entry into the courthouse, and then you will go into the existing judicial facility, and you'll go into the old jail, which will now become a new sets of courtrooms. In that building, in that old jail, will be juvenile offices, and it'll be family courts, and it'll be the offices for the judges and their staff. It'll just be a very functional building, and you won't feel like you're going. Everybody said, don't put me in the old jail. So we're not putting anybody in the old jail. We're putting them in this nice, hardened, precast building that we would never build. We would never build it to that standard for an office, but we're going to use it and we're going to make it courtrooms. And because of the day rooms and the height of those ceilings, we can make big, beautiful courtrooms in those spaces, really tall. And so that's an interior picture. Let's see. Let me go back. So you can see the screening area on the north side. You would come in, it'd be a long screening area. It's those little counters that you see there are actually, it's really well thought out to be, if someone comes and they decide they're going to shoot up the courthouse and they're going to come in the front door, our campus security is going to be our first line of defense. They are going to defend that building. And so we gave them something that doesn't look like, an armored fort or a tank, but it's a place where they can take shelter and stop the bad guys. And then off to your right would be your entryway into the old judicial. And as you're coming towards us, in the view would be going towards the old jail. There is a height difference of several feet, and so there'll have to be a ramp up to get into that floor. But they've done a good job on that design to this point. So they're still working on design drawings. We expect to have full design drawings and bid documents later this year. And then we estimate it will take 2 years to build that out. I don't know if it'll go exactly 2 years, but in our bid, that's what we would anticipate. After that, a lot of other stuff has to happen, but I figured if I could give you that much, that would at least whet your appetite and know that Franz and Rob are really busy and they're staying off the streets, and not just them, but a whole bunch of other people. I mean, kudos to our maintenance guys for stepping up and doing the training. They all the other work that they have going on, and then to take this on top of that. We're also keeping purchasing busy, and everybody's busy. Auditor paying the bills, sorting out what we code. Thankfully, Rob's coding most of this stuff, so it's right. It's not me, and Cindy would have to sort it all out. But I think that's all I have for you. I was looking for 3 dogs, so this breed does not indicate the personality of the person. It just happened to be 3.